Hello. So, a couple people asked me what build did I use before I reached Shade level 1000. I had a few builds that I ran. This one, I didn't come up with this one. I got this one off of Wids, but it's a really fun build to use. And with Umbra, it makes it a little bit easier to reach that 60% because you get 15% crit hit chance off of it and 30% reload speed. If you're not familiar with how Umbra works, really quick explanation is when you go into cover, you build up these stacks. I think they're called Into the Shadows, or From the Shadows. What is it? From the Shadows. And if you're in cover for 5 seconds, as you see, it fills up the bar. What that does is it gives you 40% RPM buff at max stacks and 120% crit hit chance, or crit hit damage when you run the chest piece. If you're not running the chest piece, it maxes out at, I think, 20% RPM rate and 60% crit hit damage, which that's such a huge damage cutoff that I would really recommend running the chest piece if you're going to run Umbra. This one is set up for utility, right? You see how there's a bunch of skill tiers? It's because I'm running Capacitor as my main weapon. And the reason you do that is because you gain damage per yellow core that you have. The top skill you don't really use in PvP. I imagine there is some builds that use it, but for this one in particular, you don't actually use the top part of capacitance. You're just abusing the fact that you get 7.5% weapon damage per skill tier. You also run it with Technician because that gives you a free skill tier. And you run, well, I run Walker and Harris because this gives you a lot of damage for the weapon damage and damage to armor, because damage to armor is a multiplicative bonus that you get, and the capacitor is the only AR that comes with damage to armor as one of its core attributes. You don't really want to run crit damage, but this is just a god rolled one that I got. You want damage to target out of cover, but I have to upgrade this one a lot, as you can see, before it's useful. But yeah, so the whole idea is that you keep yourself alive with a defender drone because you're skill tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm a little bit squishier than most players play this. A lot of people will actually just run 4 blue cores and have 4 skill tiers. Or actually, I'm skill tier 6, aren't I? Yeah, because Picaro's holster gives you a skill tier. Sorry, miscounted again. I'm gonna do that a lot, I suppose. But yeah, this one is the one that I used the most when I was Shade level 500 and lower. Just because you can do crazy things like that with this gun. Right, capacitor is busted on Umbra. So that's the one that I used the most when I was in Shade level 500 and lower. The backup weapons are obviously up to you again. I was just leveling up my SIGs. I'm trying to proficiency out everything. But this is also an you can switch this around a little bit and switch it to an AR setup for Umbra. But I'll show you the other one. I don't use this build anymore because I just find doing a lot of damage a lot more fun to me. But the other one that I used to run was an armor regen build. You would have the firewall specialization for this. Because that med kit is like the best thing ever when it comes to PvP. I also used to run a Picaro's holster with headshot damage, but I actually learned that Bellstone Armory is way better for a setup like this, so I have now switched over to that. But I also ran Emperor's Guard knee pads with headshot damage, and it was 3-piece Gila Emperor's Guard, and it was a Picaro's holster with headshot damage. And yeah, this is how I used to run my Catharsis build. You'd also put headshot damage mods on here, and you'd be running the Bighorn with this, right? So this was my old setup that I used to run 500 and below before I started understanding things, and it makes you really tanky. You run it with Adrenaline Rush and Unbreakable, so it allows you to make a lot of mistakes when you're running this build. You can't really make those mistakes in the 1000+ lobbies in the Dark Zone. A lot of people will punish you for your mistakes. The other way you can run this, instead of like a ton of armor regen, which is what I used to do, you can actually roll all of the armor regens off and do hazard protection instead, and then you can go with Emperor's Guard that have hazard protection. One of the reasons you would do that is if you're in a lobby with a lot of people that are using Iron Lung, or if they're using Riot Foam, that kind of thing. You would still want to run Defender Drone, and the other one is kind of up to you. If you're in a lobby with like a bunch of people that are running status effects, you can go over to Booster Hive to get you a little bit better hazard protection. But if that's not the case, you can also just run the decoy, just for the same reasons as the last video. But yeah, this is the setup that I used to use. I don't really play armor regen anymore. It's not really my playstyle. I don't really like doing it, but Catharsis is also really good for this setup as well, for all the obvious reasons, giving you extra damage. If you don't know how it works, you get taking damage builds stacks up to 30, and each stack is worth 1.5% weapon damage. And taking damage at max stacks triggers a purge, removing all stacks and status effects, and then dropping a healing cloud, which restores 5% of max armor for 10 seconds to all allies within the cloud. Now, a lot of newer players might not know this, but when that cloud actually drops, you can strafe in and out of it, and it'll keep refreshing that timer, right? So you get more healing for longer. And it's just one of the things to know when you're playing Catharsis. The other build that I used to use, where is it? It's another. It was this one. I didn't have the Eagle Bearer back then, but this was the other one that I used to use. I used to use it with St. Elmo's because I ran around solo a lot. I also tried it with the Bighorn. It's also really funny using it with the Bighorn because it. You know what? I'll just show you. You can get some pretty crazy numbers. It is a little bit harder to control, but yeah, you can hit really crazy numbers when you run crit damage on a Bighorn. But yeah, you can use any assault rifle you want with this setup. Like, I used to run Shield Splinter a lot before I got the Eagle Bearer and the Huntsman. The Huntsman's really funny. It shoots incredibly fast once you get that Frenzy proc. But yeah, these three builds are the ones that I used to use in the 500 and below lobbies. Umbra just makes your life a little bit easier because of the extra critical hit chance, right? Because I'm a crit hit chance player. I don't really like doing headshot stuff. And yeah, you just float around 250 crit hit damage the entire time, and you're running ARs, and it's a lot of fun. It's a mid-range build. There is another way you can set this up for submachine guns if you want to. I would still run the Yawl piece, but you would switch out the Walker Harris for a Seska piece, and you would put crit hit damage on everything. My chest runs crit hit chance because I run ARs all the time with my setup, but you would switch all of these rules to crit hit damage, right? And the reason you would do that, run the Seska piece, because it gives you extra hazard protection, so this bleed doesn't hit you that hard. But yeah, I used to also run it with a backfire because these numbers get really crazy very fast on Umbra, right? Anyone fighting you at like max stacks is not going to have a great time because that's a lot of extra crit hit damage that you're getting, right? Who's standing up to that kind of damage? Not very many people. So yeah, you would just, I don't think I have the Seska piece anymore. I can check to see if I do. Oh, I do. Silly me. But yeah, you would run it like this. These pieces don't have to be in this exact position. So maybe you got a yawl gloves or yawl holster or a Seska in one of these positions, and it just you get a really good hazard protection, 30% just from running those two. And if you don't want to like deal with the bleed as much, because my bleed is a little bleed resist will be higher because of my watch. I have like maxed out um, my hazard protection because I'm over 1,000. But yeah, my I have 10% from my watch, and I get 10% from the yawl and 20% from Seska. So it gives you 40% bleed resist, so you can actually run backfire in the dark zone with Umbra. I imagine there's other builds you can do it on too, but it works really good with Umbra because you can shoot way faster than anyone else, build those stacks really quick, and having an extra 200% crit hit damage on top of the 120 that Umbra gives you is really nuts. So these are the builds that I ran in the 500 and below lobbies. I obviously didn't have Orbit. I got rid of the pistol, but I had a pistol that just had regular finisher on it. And I also had the TDI card custom. I got it really early. I think it was like 156 when I got my first card. But yeah, these are the builds that I used in the Dark Zone before I reached 500, and I still use them today. I don't use the backfire one as much. Trying to get close and personal in the 1,000+ lobbies with backfire, and you're not running Unbreakable is kind of rough, but in the 500 and below lobbies, yeah, you can definitely get away with setups like these. And I also ran decoy. Well, I do run chem launcher sometimes. I don't really like running it, but usually when I'm busting out my AR Umbra is because people are being a little bit toxic, and this one hits really, really hard. So, yeah, these are the builds that I used to use. Still use. The one that I use the most still is actually this Umbra version. Because you can do really cool things with this. Like, say you're going against like a bunch of skill players, this will allow you to take out their skills, either indefinitely or overload them completely and destroy them if they're not a high enough skill tier, because you are skill tier 6. And if this one is actually a lot better to use over the jammer. There's just the jammer is easier to use, and sometimes I'm lazy, but if you're going against another skill tier 6, I would recommend using the EMP sticky bomb. And yeah, those are the builds that I used in the 500 and below lobbies because they're really easy to put together. Like, if you don't know how to get a Picara's holster, you just change your targeted loot in Countdown to Brazos, and you'll get a Picara's holster. I think there's another Brazos name piece. I think it's a backpack. But yeah, you have really good chances of getting a Picara's holster from there. Yeah, these are the old setups. I hope you all have a wonderful day.